Hey friends, this is Michael Boehm with Youth Apologetics Training. Today we're going to keep going on this series about the ancient astronaut theory, and we're going to start talking about how some Christians view this whole alien phenomenon. People seeing flying saucers, people claiming to be abducted by aliens, and all that. What is one Christian response? This is a strange movement, and so I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to take advantage of this series to look at this viewpoint. I know a lot of you guys out there are going to find this fascinating. So anyway, with that, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So let's go ahead and change gears. Let's look at the answer that some amongst the Christian community have come forward with. Now, before I do that, let's find ground that we can all agree on, okay? And I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. Satan is in the business of deception, okay? He's really good at what he does. He's really good. 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4, it says, "In whom the God of this world," that God of this world, it's little g, it's talking about Lucifer, "in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them." All right, so Satan has blinded the minds of them that believe not. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14, "And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light." All right, again, what am I trying to illustrate here? I'm trying to illustrate the fact that Satan is a deceiver, and he's very good at what he does. Now, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14, that's actually talking about how Satan and his ministers will be transformed into ministers of righteousness. In other words, these guys are creeping into our churches and teaching things that ought not to be taught, starting to muddy the waters as to what it really means to be saved. Rick Warren, ahem, nudge, nudge, Joel Osteen, guys like this that start saying things like they're not totally sure if there's hell. They start questioning what it really means to be Christian. Joel Osteen and Rick Warren, people like David Barton, and now even Billy Graham are all starting to make comments to the effect that Mormons are Christians. And what's going on here? Kind of a side note, but if you're not sure if Mormons are Christians or not, check out my series on, well, it answers the question, is Mormonism Christian? Getting back to the point, Satan is very good at deception. John chapter 8, verse 44, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." Revelation 12, verse 9, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." All right, so we can all agree on this, okay? And I think we can all agree, at least on the possibility, that some of these sightings, some of these accounts of UFOs, perhaps even alien visitations, let's just say, some of the different phenomenon that is surrounding this whole ancient astronaut craziness, okay? We can at least partially agree that there is a chance that Satan might have his hand in this somewhere, to deceive, to bring about yet another false belief system, right? I mean, that's not too far off track, right? It makes sense. Now that we all agree on that, let's get our tinfoil hats on, because this is where it's going to get weird. All right? Some of you have been exposed to this. Others of you, well, this is going to really trip you out. Okay? So, some Christians believe that fallen angels are posing basically as these visitors throughout history and nowadays for the purposes of basically tricking mankind. But it goes beyond that, and I won't get too far with it just yet. It actually goes beyond that. They just to put it short, they believe that these fallen angels have been involved with mankind since Genesis chapter 6, messing with mankind, teaching mankind sinful things, leading mankind to do bizarre things, eventually being the main cause of the global flood. Yeah. And all the way on to the present day, messing with and causing mankind to sin. So let's go back to Genesis 6, chapter 1, because this is where they generally start this bizarre story of these fallen angels messing with mankind. And so Genesis 6, chapter 6, verse 1 through 4, it says, "And it came to pass that when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them," check this out, "that the sons of God saw the daughters of men." All right, stop right there. That is kind of weird. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. Verse 4, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men." What is up with that? Verse 4, "There were giants in the earth." Giants? And also after that, and we're in the same sentence still, "when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him in his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God, and Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And that is right before the flood happened. Okay, so this is what some of these Christian groups believe. They actually believe that these fallen angels, okay, let's go back a hair bit here. We all have heard that Satan, when he fell, 1/3 of the angels went with him, okay? And so, well, from the Genesis 6 perspective, when it says sons of God, these various Christian groups contend that phrase, sons of God, in the Hebrew it's B'nai Elohim, means angels. They believe that angels, fallen angels, procreated with women and created these giants like Og of Bashan, the guy with the giant bed, and Goliath, the guy that kind of got a little crazy and lost his head in battle. Okay, that was a bad joke. You know what I'm saying? Now, what does this have to do with ancient astronauts? Okay, just bear with me. And so these B'nai Elohim, these fallen angels, these sons of God, within the daughters of men, they produced a race of giants. And the fact that the Bible calls them giants, the giants, these huge beings, show up throughout the Bible. And here's an interesting fact. They show up before the flood and after the flood. So do we conclude that this is genetic material that at one point was in our genetics, in our DNA, where some humans could be born abnormally large? I mean, we do have really tall people that are born nowadays, but if I remember right, I think Og of Bashan was like 13 feet tall. I think Goliath, if I remember, guys, I'm just quoting this or coming up with this from memory. I might be wrong, but I think Goliath was something like 11 feet tall. Of course, we don't know exactly because I think the Bible measures in cubits. Was it an Egyptian cubit, a Babylonian cubit? I don't know. But these guys were big. And they show up throughout the Bible. We'll read a few verses here in a minute looking at the giants. But a couple other things I want to point out here. These groups contend that right here in verse 9, yes, verse 9, it says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. Some of these groups believe that it was this fallen angel sexual interactions with the women of earth caused basically genetic uncleanness to spread across the planet. Okay, I didn't say that too well. But basically, the genetics of these fallen angels producing these sinful giants, it kind of spread across the globe. And they use this line in Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, where it says, Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And they're saying that word generations, it does refer to descendants. And they're saying, in other words, and yes, this is a stretch. I'm not saying it's outright wrong. They're saying that it basically means pure in his genetics. In a sense, pure in his genes, in his family line. In other words, his family had not had any interactions with these fallen angels. I'm just saying, that's what they're saying. Not saying I buy it, but anyway, let's move on. They believe then that because the whole earth was corrupt, and because this angelic corruption of the bloodline of everybody on the planet was so widespread, and the planet had become so sinful, God had to just wipe everything out and start over. And by the way, before I let this slip, before I move on, I should have mentioned this earlier. This B'nai Elohim, it's that phraseology is used a few times in the Old Testament, and every single time it absolutely refers to angels. I know, that's creepy. This whole thing is creepy. Whether or not you want to pin this to the whole ancient astronaut thing or not, because this whole fallen angels procreating with women thing, it doesn't have to be tied to fallen angels running around masquerading as aliens and spaceships, okay? That tie really doesn't have to be there, all right? So there, I would imagine, in fact, I'm sure of it, there's groups out there that want nothing to do with the ancient astronaut, alien, fallen angel thing, but still subscribe to this whole idea of fallen angels procreating with women. I mean, could you just imagine what the earth would be like if that really happened? How strange is that? So anyway, I have an imagination, friends, and it'd make for a great movie, put it that way. So actually, let's stop right there. I've gone a little bit long. Come out to the website, youthapologeticstraining.com, and there you guys can leave comments, questions. I really want to talk to you guys. Also, you can catch me on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. And with that, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.